When I think about the Aichi Target, I guess it's a bit like a puzzle. And why do I say Aichi Target 11 is a bit like a puzzle? Well, think of the characteristics of a puzzle. It contains a whole lot of pieces. You need to find all the pieces, you need to put all the pieces together, and you need to put them together correctly, otherwise you can't create the picture which the puzzle is trying to achieve. So why do I say this puzzle is like Aichi Target 11? Well, Aichi Target 11 is trying to put together the whole picture. It's the terrestrial, it's the inland waters, it's the coastal, and it's the marine areas. It's dealing with issues of not only effectiveness, but it's dealing with issues of equity. Bear with me. It's also trying to look at that whole picture by trying to create an equitably representative sample of that ecology embedded within those areas. So it's all these different pieces we need to try and put together. Now, if we try to put this whole picture together, I would argue that there are these different pieces, they need to be well connected, and they need to be integrated. All the wording which we're seeing coming through Aichi Target 11. But if we don't have one particular piece, will we ever be able to put all those pieces together to achieve Aichi Target 11? And what do you think that missing piece may be? Well, that missing piece may be the law. And sometimes when I listen to the discussions taking place within these big fora, and I read through some of the essential guidelines which come out of these big fora and out of various of the institutions, the law is often accorded a very insignificant role. That's why I'm so heartened to see so many lawyers sitting here. Now I want to ask you a question. Who has a copy of this document? It's the Protected Areas Legal Guidelines produced by the ICN in 2011. How many of you have opened them and read them carefully? Honestly? Now how many of you have a copy of the ICN Connectivity Concept Paper produced in 2013, and who of you have opened them and read them carefully? It's a small handful. Now these are essential documents. A substantial amount of time was invested by a number of people in producing these, and these hold key guidance, key legal principles about achieving both effective and equitable protected areas and conservation, I would argue, through these OECMs, which Harry's referred to, because the Connectivity Concept Paper is all about promoting connectivity between our former protected areas legal systems. So now to the reason I'm standing up here, and I'm presenting a project of the Environmental Law Centre which is working in collaboration with a number of other partners. What is the focus of this particular project? Well, it's to promote legal literacy. It's trying to take all these various pieces, particularly those pieces relating to the law, insofar as it applies to protected areas, governance, and to connectivity. It's based on these two particular key documents which I've just shown to you. The first phase produced the Protected Areas Legal Guidelines and the Connectivity Law Concept Paper in 2013, and we've now entered that second phase, which is the capacity building phase. And I apologize to those of you who did attend our session slightly earlier. You'll see some repetition here, but I'm very, very happy to see a far broader audience here. So this project is a collaboration. It's a collaboration between WCEL, the Academy of Environmental Law, the Will Commission on Protected Areas, and others, such as the regional offices of the IUCN. And we're hoping those others increase and increase and increase, because we're not seeking to produce something which is going to be perfect for every setting. We need partners to adapt this particular product which we're developing to their own particular context. So this project is seeking to achieve this. It has 6 project outputs. There's a CBD module which is going to be embedded within the CBD's set of training resources. There's a generic curriculum, a set of teaching materials and media resources. We're going to create an online platform to hold all these resources, and then there's going to be certain piloting of what we call the course. So before I look at the course, I just want to look at that CBD module. Very briefly, it's an interactive e-learning module which you find accessible through the CBD site. And it has 2 lessons, one focusing on international and regional law and generic legal elements, and one focusing on marine protected areas, transboundary protected areas, and the issues of connectivity, particularly looking at the legal issues, an introduction, a teaser to the legal issues which relate to each of those aspects. And one can access that through that particular link. I've only got 7 minutes, excuse me flying through it. The second aspect is the course, which is the generic curriculum, the teacher materials, and the media resources. And I once again return to my analogy. It's a slightly different soup now. You can see it's an educational soup because it's a letter soup. And this is our challenge. It's a challenge which those in this particular project are trying to deal with, because it is a soup. It's one soup. But it's a soup which we're trying to design to cater for many guests, many different events, many different flavors, based on many different recipes, and which may hold a whole series of different ingredients. So what am I talking about, this soup? Well, we're effectively developing one product, a series of products, which are there to deal and cater for many audiences, many contexts, for many purposes, for many different teaching methodologies, and we're trying to embed a whole series of different resources. The idea is we cannot produce one thing which fits all. So it's this idea of what we're trying to do is develop a whole series of ingredients which you can take together, a whole series of teaching resources and learning materials and exercises and presentations and reflective exercises and reading resources which you can draw from and adapt to your own particular setting, to make your own particular learning soup, your own particular capacity building soup, to suit your audience, to suit your context, to make your own soup. Now, when we're designing this generic soup, it has to be simple and tasty and fairly basic. But it can't be so basic that it's futile. It can't be too tasty that it alienates. And it can't be too simple that it's not of any utility to anyone. So it's something which we're grappling with, and we're trying to achieve a meaningful balance. I've introduced you to the rationale of this particular project, and it's there to build legal literacy, to build legal awareness. We've got a few protected areas lawyers out here, but they're not going to solve the world's challenges, and they're not going to achieve what Charles wants us to achieve unless we build additional capacity. Our audience, we're hoping, is going to be a mixed audience. We're anticipating a face-to-face course with core modules and specialist modules, fairly generic so that you can adapt it. You can teach the whole thing, you can teach parts of it. We're anticipating if you taught the whole thing, you could probably run it within a week. And we're providing electronic access to the resources. We're not producing an online course. That may come in time. So the ingredients, well, they're based around those two main texts which I've introduced you to, the Protected Areas Guidelines and the 15 case studies associated with those, and the Connectivity Concept Paper and the 5 case studies associated with those. And who are the cooks? Well, some of the cooks are sitting here today. Those are them. It's a blend of WCPA members, WCEL members, members of the Academy of Environmental Law, regional officers, a mixture of lawyers, a mixture of protected areas managers, and those 4 with green rings around their heads, the targets around their heads, are the ones who are trying to develop the resources. Once again, a mixture of academics and non-academics. The recipes structured around 6 core modules, and you can see the topics for the core modules there. And then an additional 6 specialist modules, 2 focusing on connectivity conservation, 2 focusing on marine protected areas, and 2 focusing on the international regional aspects and transboundary protected areas aspects. Each of these modules is structured into 2 main parts, and this is our thinking. We need the first part to convey substantive knowledge, because we can't play around with the knowledge, we can't build real skill around the knowledge until such time as someone has a base in that knowledge. So there's a seminar presentation which is designed in an interactive manner, and then we facilitate the skills development through a series of reflective exercises. The module resources, there's a seminar presentation, a series of reflective exercises, and a series of media resources, which are based on a series of interviews and documentaries and infographics. So the seminar presentation is the first component. We've developed 6 to date. We hope we'll develop the following 6 in fairly short time span from now, although it takes a long time to develop something which is simple and tasty, generic and adaptable, building pictures of knowledge, embedding animation to ensure that this thing is alive, including all the presenters' notes to enable people to utilize this particular resource, including suggestions to the audience and to the particular presenter as to how they can adapt it to their particular setting, and containing a series of different versions of it. The reflective exercise is something we've learned over time, and those involved in education will have learned that people like playing games, and they learn through playing games. They learn through playing with particular things. So we're developing scenarios, a whole series of different practical scenarios. They're fictional, yet they're based on real life scenarios. We don't want to create or utilize real-life scenarios for fear that they may alienate certain elements of the audience. But we draw the lessons from those, and we create a basket of choice, and there are a whole series from legal drafting through to play, through to negotiation exercises and so forth. They're embedded within these particular modules. And finally, there's a series of media resources which if you have been interviewed here, thank you very much for being interviewed by the Young Media Coalition. If you are to be interviewed by the Young Media Coalition, please cooperate with them, because a lot of the resources and a lot of the interviews which are being generated here will form part of the media resources. So, in short, we're trying to create a cupboard for you to choose from. 12 modules. You can blend those modules in any way you wish to suit your particular setting, your particular audience. And remember that within each of those modules, there's a series of ingredients. So you don't need to take all elements from that particular module. You can take certain ingredients which you've created and blend them to create your own educational and training resource. And what we're hoping is that you blend your own ingredients, you develop your own ingredients and embed those too in your educational soup. The last two parts of this are the online platform, which we're currently building, which is going to host all these materials. And then we're looking to pilot the course. And if anyone's interested in piloting the course, please contact Lydia Slobodian, who you heard from earlier. So, my last word, there is the invitation. And the invitation is to come and make soup with us. And if you thought there was nothing called a free lunch or a free dinner, guess what? This is a free lunch and a free dinner, because we want to create free, open access educational resources for the utility and the benefit of all. And as we say in South Africa, vleit, vleit, my story is uit. Thank you.